Hello and welcome to The Big Fight. I'm Nidhi Razdan. This week, more than 100 former bureaucrats wrote an open letter to Prime Minister Modi expressing concern over the frenzy of hate-filled destruction in the country, as they put it. They said BJP-ruled governments were assiduously practicing a politics of hate and that not just Muslims were at the sacrificial altar, but also members of other minority communities and the constitution itself. Strong words. Importantly, they also pointed out the Prime Minister's own deafening silence on the issue. Among those who signed that letter, the former LG of Delhi, Najeeb Jung, former NSA Shiv Shankar Menon, former Foreign Secretary Sujata Singh and Shyam Saran, and former Home Secretary G.K. Pillai. Also, former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's Principal Secretary T.K.N. Nair. 108 signatories to that letter in all. This comes at a time when a number of states have been witnessing rising communal tensions. Hate speeches against Muslims have been on the rise, and only now the Supreme Court has intervened. Religious processions have become conflagration points. Well, joining us first on The Big Fight to talk about all this is Mr. Najeeb Jung, the former LG of Delhi, one of the signatories to that letter to the Prime Minister. Mr. Jung, we had an interview with Gopal Gandhi just yesterday, and he was saying that in a sense that what is the point of writing these open letters? It's a good thing to do, but I think he was suggesting that it may or may not really help. Why did you sign that letter, rather?
I respect Gopal's views, and a lot of people have said that these letters have little meanings. But we are a group of about 200 retired civil servants. Among us, we have put in over maybe 8,000, 9,000 years of service in government. And we believe that letters do make a difference. We are convinced that somewhere these letters will make a difference. This letter is an appeal to the Prime Minister. It is not a criticism of government. We appreciate what the government has done over the years. But the last 8-10 months have been very frightening for Dalits, for Muslims, for Christians, for all minorities. And therefore, we think that we should bring this to the notice of the highest authority, that we are concerned, because we really do believe that the one voice that carries weight in India is of the Honorable Prime Minister. I mean, should he give a signal to his partymen, to all those others who don't belong to his party but are involved in this kind of violence, it would make a significant difference. So if our letter has reached the Prime Minister, then it is our fervent request that this plea be heard and that he speak to the people of this country as he speaks in Man Ki Baat and so on.
Sure. But, we already had a reaction from the BJP to the letter, essentially, pointing fingers, questioning the credentials of all of you. You are people, as you rightly pointed out, who have served in have done distinguished service for this country. And yet, the official spokespersons go out and attack you for the letter, saying you're not focusing on the good things that the country is doing. So does that really give you any hope that the top leadership is going to respond?
No, Nidhi, like I said, this is not a criticism of what the good that has been done. This is not at all a criticism. It's only a reflection of our anguish. It's a reflection of deep pain that we have been feeling, that India is being torn asunder by the monster of communalism that seems to be arising suddenly in these last 8-10 months. And therefore, it's incumbent on the government and indeed on the highest office to speak against it and give a signal that they are against this kind of violence and orchestrated violence which seems to be going on in states that are particularly ruled by the Bharatiya Janata Party.
Well, that is one aspect of it. But the other aspect is also different institutions, whether it is law enforcement and the courts in particular. How much of a concern is that for all of you, that there really doesn't seem to be, or there is a belated reaction to this issue, even from the courts?
we have been indeed very disappointed in the reaction of many constitutional authorities that include the courts, that includes the Election Commission of India. And we have written to the Election Commission of India. Like you said, tragically, we don't get a response. And this is not proper etiquette. I mean, we have served the government all our lives. And it's not the Congress that we have served. I, for one, have served more in the BJP times. I have had chief ministers who are personally very fond of me. So it's not the Congress government. We've served the Lok Dal, we have served the Janata Dal, we have served the Bharatiya Janata Party. So it's not one government that we speak for. I have put in 44, 45 years of service in government. My colleagues have put in 35, 36 years of service. We have served this country. We believe, we swear by the Constitution. That's why we call ourselves the Constitutional Conduct Group. And anything that we believe violates the Constitution or is going against the spirit of the Constitution, that is when we choose to write to a person that we believe would be effective in doing the right thing.
All right, Mr. Najeeb Jung, thank you very much for joining us on The Big Fight today. Let me just take what you said to the BJP spokesperson on the program today, Ranbir Singh Patania, with us. Also, let me introduce the other guests. Mr. Ashwini Dubey is an advocate with the Supreme Court. Mihra Sood, advocate of the Supreme Court, also joining us shortly. Mr. Yashwardhan Azad, former IPS officer, and Pawan Khera, spokesperson of the Congress Party. Mr. Patania, you heard what Mr. Jung said. Why was the BJP so quick to dismiss what these bureaucrats have written to the Prime Minister? Why not listen to what they have to say?
We are an open-minded government and an open-minded party. We are susceptible to each and every constructive point which is in the interest of the country, in the interest of the spirit of the rule of law, and in the spirit of the democracy. My viewpoint remains. In a particular period of time when the Bharat Sarkar is celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, certain elements, now I will not deliberate upon elements within the society, elements within, we could say, the civil society, and elements within almost all the important sections of society. They have been trying to create issues out of thin air, just trying to create such, as I say, nasty corners for the government.
But what has
just
been
creating
created?
tight corners for the government.
What has been created out of thin air?
I'm telling. There's one incident which was reported from Madhya Pradesh, and then Digvijay Singh ji planted a video on a Twitter which was later on found to be a fake video. There was an incident in New Delhi and Rahul Gandhi ji went the death of the democracy and bulldoze and all that. Just, you see, we need to go at the root of the issue. India is a plural country. India is an inclusive country. India is a secular country. And India's spirit of tolerance is the biggest strength of India. This is what we want to demonstrate. We have tried to demonstrate. We want to emancipate on development.
But all these things have happened, Mr. Patania. Whether it is the communal tensions across 7 states during the Ram Navami processions, whether it is Jahangir Puri, whether it is Khargaon, the bulldozers went in, the Dharam Sansads have happened. Only now the Supreme Court has stepped in. Did those hate speeches not happen? Did not governments in those states allow those hate speeches to happen? Why is Yati Narsinganand, who made the original hate speech against Muslims in Haridwar, he was arrested, given bail, told not to make those hate speeches again. He still did it in Delhi and he's not been arrested after that. This has all happened, no?
See, madam, this is one side which is the public perception of the entire affair. But let me tell you that does Modi Sarkar enlarge anybody on bail or not? 3 cases they were registered against Yati Narsinganand.
No, but the police should arrest somebody who violates his bail conditions.
And we not at all subscribe to whatsoever has been said by Yati Narsinganand ji. We, Sir Sangchalak ji of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh also, he has also disassociated. Indiresh Kumar ji, very senior RSS leader, even senior BJP leader, they have said this doesn't reflect the true spirit of India. So
Okay. So then you
once
agree that he
voted,
should be arrested again?
you see, this is then a prerogative of an investigating officer. The arrest, or as per law, this is what the law says. The arrest or non-arrest. The arrest or non-arrest of a person who is accused of an offence in a particular FIR.
Okay.
This is the exclusive prerogative of
Pawan
the concerned
Khera,
IO.
Pawan Khera wants to come in here because there seems to be a suggestion from the BJP spokesperson that we're making this up. It's coming out of thin air. I'll come back to you, Mr. Pathan. I just want opening comments from everybody because we have the whole hour.
Please.
Nidhi, for a man who started his political career, electoral career, if you remember September 2002, the speech at Khairlanji by Narendra Modi, Hum Panch, Hamare 25, a very famous speech. He would like to forget that speech, but we won't let him forget that speech. That's how he's made his electoral career. Do you expect him to act? वो दिल से माफ नहीं करते प्रज्ञा ठाकुर को, लेकिन प्रज्ञा ठाकुर को एमपी भी बनाते हैं, अच्छी कमिटीज में भी रखते हैं, पार्लियामेंट की डिफेंस कंसल्टेटिव कमिटी में भी रखेंगे. So don't expect the Prime Minister to open his mouth because he has no moral authority over anyone in his party. भाई आपने तो खुद ही अपना करियर ऐसे शुरू किया और प्रधानमंत्री बन गए, तो आपसे क्या उम्मीद होगी कि आप लोगों को चुप कराएंगे? संभव ही नहीं है, भूल जाइए. He should have removed Pragya Thakur. He should have acted against this Yati Narsinghana. But he won't. And then Mr. Pathania comes and says that the country's image. अरे साहब, आपको छवि की बड़ी चिंता है, देश की चिंता नहीं. अगर छवि की भी चिंता है तो कुछ सुधारिए फिर. No, tell me, Nidhi, we've all celebrated Ram Navami, Hanuman Jayanti very peacefully. We've never witnessed scenes that people standing outside a masjid and using 4-letter words for Muslims. Why? They can't be Hindus. So why are they hiding behind Hinduism, defaming my religion, defaming my country, and then when I raise my voice, they say, अरे आप तो हमारी छवि के साथ खिलवाड़ कर रहे हो. छवि के साथ तो आप खिलवाड़ कर रहे हो. धर्म की छवि के साथ, देश की छवि के साथ, संविधान की छवि के साथ.
Mr. Pathania, quick response before I move on and open this up to the panel.
I just wanted, madam, before 2014, we took up an initiative and we fulfilled also toilet to each and every habitation across the country. We fulfilled our commitment since 60 years of independence. We started with electric bulb in every house. We were onto it and we fulfilled it. We started with Jal Jeevan Mission, piped water to each and every habitation. We are very shortly in the process of fulfilling this one obligation also. A pakka house to everybody in an urban area as well as in a rural area. But my learned friends from the Congress and my learned friends from other political parties, they don't want to emancipate upon development. They just want to confuse and confound the things. Narendra Modi ji is the first Prime Minister. You see, cow vigilantism has been happening in India since decades back. But he's the first Prime Minister who spoke against cow vigilantism. RSS senior leaders who were accused of orchestrating the affairs from behind the stage, they said, no, this doesn't reflect the true spirit of the India. We want, now on the Ramanami procession, what Mr. Pawan Khera ji was telling us, sir, there are people, everybody has a freedom of speech, freedom of religion. A religious procession is attacked. A religious procession is attacked with swords, with pistols, with fires and all that.
Which the procession was also carrying. Which
Sorry,
those in the procession were also carrying.
Jahangir Puri, madam, we have busted a nexus between supplying arms.
This is how they spread hatred.
ये
देखिए आपके शो पे बैठकर झूठ बोल रहे हैं.
There was a
आपके शो पर बैठ के झूठ बोल रहे
Mr.
हैं.
Pathania,
he was a Hindu. The main nexus behind the illegal arms supplier was a Hindu. And there was one person, I won't reflect his religion, Mr. Arnaz, who has a flurry of cases against him, who has a history of creating communal tensions. If we have tried to, we could say, pitch him out, and they have created an India-wide issue on it. This is what I want to say. Please don't try to communalize, emancipate with us on issues of development. Emancipate with us on developmental indicator.
Okay.
We have not been able to give...
Pawan, I'll come back to you. Let me just open this up. Because Mihira Sood, you know, we were lamenting now for weeks that our institutions like the courts in particular were kind of silent, and they were silent and have been, watching things unfold, the bulldozers, the hate speeches, etc. Now the Supreme Court has stepped in on the hate speech issue and actually have shown that when they want to, they can, put a stop to certain things from happening. So they said that, don't let another Dharam Sansad take place in Roorkee, and Section 144 was imposed, and it didn't happen. Are the courts, though, doing enough, according to you?
See, the courts always have a choice whether to take a conservative approach or a proactive one, and can justify either of them depending on what they choose. So, it is, when the courts choose to take a conservative approach, and it's, it's not just the Supreme Court, because most often these cases, they come up at the level of the lower courts, and it depends in large part on what the police file, right? So it's not enough to say, see, courts by the judiciary by its very nature is primarily reactive, right? It reacts to things that have already happened. And yes, it can take a more proactive stand when, you have something in the media, when something is very evident that it's going to happen, and the courts take suo motu cognizance of it. But then that's really only in the realm of the Supreme Court. And, at the lower courts, they depend in large part on what the police file, what are the charges mentioned in the charges that the police file. And if the police themselves are, under the thumb of the local state government, then the court is perfectly, it's a routine thing for the court to just focus on what is the complaint before it, what is the police saying, and not necessarily look beyond. And that's a very easy way out for the courts as well. And that tends to happen in a lot of the cases that we've been seeing. It's not that there isn't an option for a more proactive stand. It's just that it requires, as you yourself said, when the court wants to, it does. It can, right? But these fig leaves are always available to those who don't want to, whether it is courts, politicians, police, whoever.
Yashovardhan Azad, again, when we talk about institutions, and Mihira Sood raised the point of the police, how concerned are you that these institutions are actually crumbling? It's very obvious that they are crumbling, the judiciary included, I have to say.
Well, there are two parts, and let me first comment on the bureaucrats. I laud the sentiment of the bureaucrats. Najeeb, my friend, just said it's an appeal to the Prime Minister about what things are happening. I have no problems with that. I mean, Prime Minister should speak on these things. But my point is, in 9 states across the country, every state institution failed to control the riots. In fact, it was worse in some of the states like Karoli. It happened in Jharkhand. It happened in West Bengal. So what does it mean? Institutions are definitely crumbling. The police dithered in all the states to take action. And that's why the issue is, you can't just blame PFI or you can't blame Hindu Wahini and say, okay, what can we do? It's the job of the state government to control riots. It's the job of the government to see that if a procession has been prevented, it has not been given permission, then it should not be allowed. Also, if you see, on both the sides, the lumpen elements have had free play. What the administration is doing is a very simple thing. After the event has taken place, then of course you register cross cases, you have curfew, and there is no problem. You say we do a very good investigation. So at the point of conflagration, when nobody took action, clearly shows that this problem is endemic. And I wish the bureaucrats had also said that we are worried over the breakdown of law and order across these states. That would have been a very, very wise move.
Let me get Ashwini Dubey's opening comments on that. Ashwini Dubey.
See, India is a diversified country, and people from different religions, different castes lives here. And hate speech has been defined in the Indian Penal Code, and there is a need as of now that stricter punishment should be brought into the legislation. Reasons: the Indian Penal Code was made by the Britishers to suppress the voice of freedom fighters. One. in the name of Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution of India, whosoever, whatever religion he belongs to, whatever he caste belongs to, incite violence by uttering the words under the name of constitutional guarantee must be looked into strictly. There is a law, 153A, 295A, some section of Representation of People Act. It has to be understood that the right to free speech ends where hate speech begins. I myself have filed a petition in Supreme Court stating that, look, the Law Commission of India in its 267th report has suggested that looking into the world context, there is a need to look into the hate speech in today's context. It must be appreciated that liberty is there for all. And if in the name of free speech, the hate speech is delivered, which marginalizes certain people, then the liberty of those people is snatched away. That's exactly the 19(2) says. So the people on the one hand, they explore the liberty granted under one provision of the Constitution of India, ignoring the second. So the intention of having the freedom of speech is not to disregard the other sections of the society, but to give them an equal voice. And I think the judiciary has been pioneer into it. I respectfully disagree to Nidhi ji, to you. The Supreme Court not once, but on number of occasions have passed an order. Vishwanathan Committee was formed in 2019. This Barua Committee was formed in 2014. And in the recent judgment, which you have just seen, what Supreme Court says? For the Roorkee that look, Chief Secretary was directed that none of the speakers should speak anything which violates the rights of others, or which creates communal tension, which creates hatred in the society. And
Exactly.
Pioneer into it.
That's what I said, that when they wanted to intervene, they did it in a tough way. And guess what? The administration acted. But Ashwini Dubey, let me ask you, that do you not think Yati Narasimhanand should be arrested? He has clearly violated his bail conditions. Is this not a sitting duck case?
Respectfully, Nidhi ji, the courts of this country have been given ample powers under the provisions of Criminal Procedure Code to discretionary power. It's not the power which has to be applied. This discretionary power to grant bail and to look into the limited scope, whether the person, if granted bail, shall again violate that. And if that is so, then the bail should be cancelled. And I think, so whosoever is aggrieved by that must approach to the court of law and seek a remedy to cancel that bail. There is law is available before the court of law.
Let me get back to you, Mr. Pathania, that, why does the BJP though seem to think, and I come back to the original point that you made, that all of this is some giant conspiracy to malign the country. I saw a tweet by Padma Lakshmi just yesterday, and she's being now hammered by the right wing on Twitter because, she's talked about violence against Muslims in India. So now she's being accused of being paid for that tweet, for being part of some toolkit, etc. Now, why are we reacting this way? How is this helping our image? What is destroying our image is not Padma Lakshmi's tweet, is it? It's what is happening in our country.
You see, one thing we should very frankly admit, that India is a multilingual, multicultural, and it's a plural country. There have been frictions in the past between one community and the other, between one religion. You find ample instances where people belonging to one religion but belonging to different sects, they have also indulged in inter-see struggles and inter-see, we could say, tensions also. But the way this should not happen, I am not at all endorsing the way these tensions between religions and between sects and between communities have happened in the past few decades prior to 1947 and after 1947, not at all. But the way the opposition and I again say my learned friends from the opposition, they have tried to add fuel to the fire. They have tried to give a new and a virtual, and this is what I call a dangerous twist to the state of affairs and to the things what they have happened. This is disturbing. This is disturbing.
What is the dangerous twist that the opposition has given?
That's what I'm telling, madam. That's what I'm telling. The way they have tried to create an issue out of, what was it? It was a routine, and Mr. Najeeb Jung was also saying they were orchestrated attacks. It was planned. It is not all of a sudden that Ramanami processions were attacked, and it was all of a sudden on a grave provocation.
Mr. Pathania,
at the heat of the moment.
What would you say? What would you say to the numerous processions that were actually carrying weapons and chanting abusive slogans about Muslims in front of masjids? Was that right?
We don't know. No, absolutely.
Right.
We don't endorse
you've
it.
seen that.
We never endorse it. We don't endorse it. But you see, what was the attempt? The attempt was to create a divide. Just India has emerged out of a crisis. We have definitely emerged out of the corona crisis. This was an attempt.
So then why doesn't the Prime Minister speak, Mr. Pathania? Why doesn't he say something? I said this the other day as well. He's everybody's Prime Minister. That's a given. Why doesn't he speak on this?
He spoke on cow vigilantism.
No, now about all this.
The RSS top brass spoke with regard to the hate speech of Yati Nrsingham.
But he's the Prime Minister.
Who was attributed to as a favorite, we could say. He belonged to BJP. He had some assignments in BJP. Some people of BJP had been going to him for seeking blessings. I am saying it on record that we never own whatsoever is the process of law.
I'm asking you again, don't you think the Prime Minister should break his silence on this issue?
You see, India's concerned with a diversified, we could say, issues and problems. And the Prime Minister might have been, this is my speculation, I cannot comment on behalf of the Prime Minister's office, but he might have been seized of the fact. And I think whatsoever is the rightful action at the right time with the right quantum shall be responded to by the Prime Minister office. This is what my speculation.
Right. So Pawan Khera, you have to wait for the right time.
Nidhi, for my learned friend Mr. Pathania, now he is providing, I feel bad for him, but he's part of the RSS toolkit. I'll tell you what the RSS toolkit is.
Please.
Between 14 and 19, मैं उससे पुराना इतिहास में नहीं जाऊंगा. Between 14 and 19, they quietly implanted some words in our popular narrative. What was that particular phrase? Tukde Tukde gang. Post 19, what are the words that they are quietly implanting in our narrative? Hijab, jhatka, halal, bulldozer,
urban Naxal भूल गए.
I forgot.
अर्बन नक्सल भी बोलिए.
इतना मुस्लिम्स के लिए नहीं है.
हाँ, but
अर्बन
generally
नक्सल तो ये कवर फायर देते हैं, फिर वो लोग नए अपना लेकर आते. So my friend Mr. Pathania is a very learned guy and a very decent man. So people like him then are used to bring new sets of phrases like urban naxals. Now he was giving us examples of toilets ban gaye sahab. So it's the same mindset which said कि हिटलर ने भले ज्यूस को मारा कोई बात नहीं, ट्रेन्स टाइम पर चलती थी. So it's the same mindset. नहीं टॉयलेट्स बन गए थे. हाँ मुसलमानों को मारा जा रहा होगा मैं मान लेता हूं, बट देखो टॉयलेट्स बने. What kind of an argument is this? So that's the cover fire which we should be more worried about than the toolkit he is trying to protect. So I'm sorry, but Nidhi, your own fraternity, I'm not talking about your channel, but you look at some of the channels, the way they put these seeds in our minds and in impressionable minds. ये सारे शब्द जब ये डालते हैं, टुकड़े टुकड़े गैंग, हिजाब, झटका वर्सेस हलाल, बुलडोजर, बाबा का बुलडोजर, मामा का बुलडोजर, glorifying. So what do you expect? You expect the Prime Minister to come out of the toolkit? He's part of the toolkit. And this toolkit has been in operation from 1925. I can give you decade-wise examples of what were the kind of words they were trying to put in our heads. Now they are in power. And media is, I don't even want to talk about the media. तो ऐसे सलाम झुककर करते हैं मीडिया वाले इन लोगों को. साहब हमारे वक्त ऐसा मीडिया मिल जाता तो साहब सुभान अल्लाह, हम तो कभी सत्ता से बाहर.
छोटा सा सवाल अगर आप परमिट करें तो.
हाँ, Mr. Pathania, go ahead.
You are talking about
very small question.
You are talking about
with regard to bulldozer, sir. With regard to an illegal construction on an enclosed land, what stops an officer to raise it? And will my learned friends from Congress answer with regard to the, we could say, judicially declared and affirmed role of Congress in 1984 riots? With regard to demolition, will you please tell what happened in Turkman Square, sir? What happened in Turkman Square, sir? 10,000
समझ में आता है दिमाग थोड़ा बहुत.
Okay, Pawan, answer that.
Pawan ji, respond to it, sir.
And then I'll come to you, Mihira. I'll come to you next. Yes,
I'll respond to it. I agree with you. Illegal structures should be demolished.
Absolutely.
Start with your Adesh Gupta, the BJP president of Delhi. आप गिराएंगे उनका illegal structure?
बिल्कुल गिराएंगे सर, illegal होगा गिराएगा।
बहुत एक आध मीडिया था मजबूत। आप अभी बोल रहे हैं कि आप सैनिक फार्म्स गिरा देंगे पूरा, इलीगल है पूरा, गिराएंगे? बोलिए चलिए, अभी ब्रेकिंग न्यूज बनाते हैं, बोलिए चलिए, बोलिए, हिम्मत दिखाइए। So Mr. Pathania today announces that BJP has decided to demolish the entire Sainik farms.
And Mr. Pavan Kheda today announces that anything which is on the public land shall be protected by Congress. All encroachments shall be protected by Congress. Pavan Kheda ji shall be getting front of the vanguard and see to it. It is free to all India. If Congress is this manifesto,
okay. This is going nowhere. This is going nowhere. I'm going to interrupt. One second. Mihira Sood wanted to make a point and then Mr. Azad. Okay. Pawan, I'll come back to you guys. 1 second. Mihira Sood, yes.
And Nidhi, I just wanted to say, you were talking about, you were speaking to Mr. Pathania and asking, will the Prime Minister condemn this kind of hate speech? And, while I do agree that it really would be great if the Prime Minister did condemn this hate speech, I'm not sure that it would make that much of a difference, because we know that this government is accustomed to speaking in forked tongues. One set of instructions are issued to their, to their workers, their troll army, and everyone else who's participating in public discourse, whether on the streets or on Twitter. And, another set of politically correct sounding speeches may be made at the correct fora, particularly internationally. It doesn't make a difference. I think we need to move beyond will the Prime Minister condemn it, because why should we even believe that? I think the point that Mr. Pavan Kheda raised, though, is an important one, because what is the purpose of these kind of actions? What is the purpose of this hate speech? And I think the purpose of it is to shift the concept called the Overton window, to shift the Overton window. Just think back to 2014 and look at us now in 2022. See the range of things that have become normalized. See the way the extremes have been brought more and more centerward. That's the shifting of the Overton window. The window of, that which is reasonable, that which is acceptable, has shifted so far right that we don't bat an eyelid at this kind of vocabulary, and, as Mr. Pavan Kheda was talking about, some of the words that have just become a normal part of our daily lexicon, love jihad, and all the rest of it. These concepts are taking root in our mind, and even those of us who oppose this kind of narrative, we're using these phrases more and more in our daily conversation, whether sarcastically, whether critically, but that they're still achieving their aim, which is moving that window rightwards and making, Hindutva, nationalism, Hindu fascism more and more normal, so that we simply don't blink at it anymore. And that's what we need to worry about. That's the purpose of the hate speech. It's not, the damage that is being caused to, in the here and now to people's lives on the ground is probably a bonus for the people who are doing it. But the real win for them is the one that's more in the long run, that what the people consider normal and acceptable has fundamentally changed in the last 8 years.
Yeah. There is a new normal, as we got used to hearing in the last couple of years, thanks to COVID. And you're right, it extends to what is happening with regard to communal tensions and relations. Mr. Azad, you wanted to come in.
Yes, I have a lot of things to come in on, because
please go ahead.
Going on by way of allegations and counter allegations. I'm not in favor or against any political party, but let me say that no political system is ideal. I mean, even the earlier political systems, we were seeing a lot of issues. The institutions have been crumbling for a long time. There were major riots earlier too, and it was the same sequence of events which used to take place. The same procession would go in front of the mosque, there would be brickbatting, and there will be a counter, and and the police will not act. Why are we not concerned? You asked the right question some time back. Why are the institutions crumbling? Institutions are crumbling because parties across the divide are not coming to one to do anything about it. Do you think the police reforms is being enacted upon by any non-BJP state? No, they are all one. Do you think the political parties which are supposed to come under the RTI Act, all the parties were one on this? So there are many issues. We don't talk only in terms of slogans, but in terms of facts. In 2014, when the issue of hate speech went to the Supreme Court said that no, the existing laws are enough and we refuse to give guidelines. In 2018, in the Tehseen Poonawalla case, they gave a huge set of guidelines. Every guideline is there. Why is it not being acted upon? The Dharm Sansad guy should be put behind bars every time he says anything. Similarly, the Maulana who was talking in Hubli, which led to a riot and attack on the police station, should be booked. Similarly, the UP cleric who was talking rubbish, he should also be booked. But why is nothing being done? It's because the police today has become a political party agent. And this is not only happening in BJP states, it's happening in every state. And no party is willing to come together across the table and say, yes, at least there are institutions like police should be left alone. The Chief Justice of India recently in a lecture said that for a police to be more and more serving the public and to be seen as a protector, there should be a distance from the police, between the police and the political executive. And there are ways to explore it.
Well, it's the complete opposite. It's the complete opposite. And you're right.
Exactly.
I mean, we're seeing the way the police is being misused across states. You're right. Look at what has happened in Maharashtra as well, in Assam right now with Jignesh Mivani, everything. Ashwini Dubey, do you believe that the existing guidelines on hate speech and the current laws are genuinely enough, or that, as some have suggested, that India needs a tougher law on hate speech, which is very clearly defined?
As I said, that these laws were made by the Britishers to suppress the voice of freedom fighters. Now the situation had changed. Under the name of constitutional guarantee, people often violate it. Maybe any of the reason, maybe sometime political reason, sometime maybe religious reason, whatever it is. But the laws are not enough. There is a need to revise and strengthen the existing discrimination legislation so that to meet the universal standards on equality across all groups, communities, men and women. Recently in 2005, there was a conference in Jakarta, Indonesia. India is signatory to that. What is need of the hour is, the India must look into it in the world context. Laws should be adopted to punish incitement to hatred that may result in violence, hostility and discrimination. They should be implemented in a non-selective, non-arbitrary and transparent manner, which should not be used to stifle dissent or the legitimate exercise of freedom of expression.
Okay,
and again, Nidhi, very respectfully, another 30 seconds. I completely respectfully disagree to my panelist's point that the courts are not independent. We have to understand these are the courts, Indian courts, which have quashed the certain provisions of the UAPA in this three girls, one girl and all in Delhi rights case who were arrested. So it is not the case where the courts are not exercising their jurisdiction. And as a student of law, I do have firm belief in the judicial system of this country. So one should come forward and of course work for strengthening the society. The religious minorities, parliamentarians should be enabled to raise issues relating to freedom of expression and religion. And the fight against hate speech cannot be isolated. It should be discussed on a wider platform such as the United Nations and all. Every responsible government, regional bodies, you, me and other international regional actors should respond to this threat. India run by a constitution and the basic object is that people should live in harmony, irrespective of the caste, creed and religion.
Well, that's well said. Though I think if you take this issue to the United Nations, this government might, issue a statement against you and get celebrities to tweet against you for it because we're so touchy about anything being internationalized. Well, Mr. Patani, actually, let me come to that. The US has a body that looks at religious freedom, okay? And they released a report this week where they said for the third year in a row that India is a country of particular concern when it comes to religious freedom. And you know which countries are in that same bracket with us? China, Iran, Nigeria, North Korea, Pakistan, Syria, Tajikistan, Saudi Arabia. Is this the company that the world's largest democracy should be in?
You see, taking my learned friends' comments on a positive note, we need to work together. We need to work together to bring India as a society, as a nation, and as a polity and as a democratic country to pull out India out of it. We need to wipe away the scourge of, we could say, all these religious bigotries, these wedges, these gaps, these undue skirmishes, and whatsoever is the true letter and the spirit of the Constitution of India. What is the ultimate gospel of the concept of rule of law, it should prevail upon. And as rightly said by Mr. Azad Sahab also, that all the officers, the political executive and all the political parties and all the civil society should, this is not at all, let me be very frank and forthright in saying, is this the responsibility of the Prime Minister? Is this the responsibility of the ruling government? Might be, but this is the responsibility of each and every political party. This is the responsibility of all the pillars of the government.
But you are not answering my question on, those are very noble thoughts, but my question was on India being in the company of North Korea, Iran, Nigeria and all, basically all the dictatorships of the world, we are in their company in this list.
I'm onto it, we need to come out of it. Okay. We need to come out of it and we deserve not to be bracketed. And I virtually question and I rather dispute the parameters which they have employed by bracketing India with all these nations. This is not at all the case. Okay. India is a vibrant and a living democracy. India has progressed within the 60-70 years. India has started from a naught and India is a superpower in the entire world, around the entire globe. This is not the way.
Okay.
The things should be.
Pawan Khera, your thoughts on that report?
We should come on a single platform on certain issues. There should not be any hallucinations, should not be any disagreements. Agreeing to disagree and disagree to agree. There's a difference between all that. We need to work united on a positive spirit, on a positive note.
Okay.
And what
I appreciate that Mr. Pathania is trying to...
This is the concept of New India. What we say New India. This is the concept of New India. Yes, please.
Pawan Khera, last couple of minutes left.
देखिए पठानिया जी जैसा स्टेट्समैन तो मैं नहीं हूं तो मैं वैसे विचार उनके रिस्पेक्ट करता हूं. I won't be able to use those beautiful words which Mr. Pathania has used. But taking from what Mr. Azad said, I think he would be more in the right position to talk about Malimat committee reforms, which have been pending. So I think there is a need for all of us, media in particular, and retired bureaucrats like Mr. Yashovardhan Azad, who had glorious careers, to start talking about Malimat committee reforms or maybe a new set of reforms which are really required for to govern our criminal justice system, because there is a major gap in our criminal justice system which Mihira and Mr. Dubey and Mr. Azad would be in a better position to comment. But political leadership इस देश में यथा राजा तथा प्रजा चलता है. जब अगर राजा ही अपना करियर ऐसे बनाकर आया हो, what do you expect the BJP and the Sangh to do? Don't expect anything from them, even if they do some lip service here and there, won't really matter. जो कल का मुखौटा है आज का चेहरा बन जाता है भारतीय जनता पार्टी में, आज का जो चेहरा है वो कल का मुखौटा बन जाता है. सो टुमारो व्हेन योगी आदित्यनाथ कम्स, मोदी जी स्टेट्समैन बन जाएंगे बहुत बड़े, जैसे अडवाणी जी के वक्त अटल जी बहुत बड़े स्टेट्समैन थे और अडवाणी जी असली चेहरा थे. तो यहाँ ये चलता रहता है, ये एक कठपुतली का गेम है और नागपुर से कठपुतलियां चलती हैं. हमारे दोस्त मेरे को लगता है ये भी बड़े आगे बढ़ेंगे, बड़े स्टेट्समैन जैसे बोलते हैं हमारे पठानिया जी. तो अब ये चेहरा बनते हैं या मुखौटा ये देखते हैं, बट आई विश हिम वेल इन हिज करियर.
Last word to you, Mihira Sood. Last word.
You know, on this point about where India ranks in religious freedom, I think very often our response to that is, well, all of you people, people like me, people like Mr. Pawan Khera, whoever else, are able to criticize this government, are able to,
be on this show.
Eat what you want, be on this show, eat what you want, dress how you want, practice whatever you want. And, therefore that in itself is supposed to be proof that there's no problem with religious freedom here. But I think the point that was being discussed earlier is where we need to focus. Is it the homes in Sainikpuri that are being demolished for being illegal constructions, or is it the homes in Jahangirpuri? And religious freedom needs to be looked at from that perspective. The people who are the least privileged, most marginalized, where is their religious freedom, not yours and mine? And that's very frequently what is trotted out when people want to defend the extent of religious freedom available in India.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to end it there today. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us. Let us see what the next few weeks and months bring as more elections near in the country. Good night.